So sweet. Yeah. I lied. My chapel talk isn't about poop anxiety. It's about my dad. Those who have met my dad have said something along the lines of, Kelly, your dad is so interesting. You walk like your dad. You look just like your dad. You even have the stubble. But the craziest thing I've heard since coming to Millbrook is, your dad is so lovable. You meet him once and you love him. What? No. But yeah, my dad is lovable and he is wonderful. He's changed significantly throughout my life. I didn't even realize until 3 years ago when I arrived at Millbrook. That's the cool thing about being away from home. You gain perspective. Picture an angry Chinese businessman, but with above average levels of paranoia and an increased intolerance for incompetence. Someone who has had his entire life planned out the moment he developed a consciousness. Someone who only drinks tea and snacks on honey-roasted macadamia nuts and never sleeps. I might have just summarized my dad in 3 sentences. All you need to know is he always has some sort of goal and has his sights set on the highest achievements and the best of everything and does not settle for less than perfect. I'll skip the earlier years of his life due to privacy reasons because I didn't notify him that my chapel talk was going to be about him. In fact, I don't think he knows I'm even doing a chapel talk. We digress. Allegedly, after getting his MBA at UChicago, Chicago, he works for a bit, and at some point, he allegedly meets someone, and the moment he sees her, he thinks, that's my wife. Allegedly. Yeah, he just knew she checked all the boxes, and so he waited for my mom every day after she got off from work with a bouquet of flowers and fought off potential competition and slept in her family's living room. And they got married. Yay! Soon after, they had their first child, my older sister, Anne, with an E. His parenting style seemed to work for her, very much traditional parenting where I'm from. Like, do everything you're told, don't complain. Anne is the best older sister I could ask for. I remember the day she told me that the entire point of my existence is to keep her entertained. This isn't about her, though. 4 years later, I came along and, wow, it was money down the drain. Poop anxiety, social anxiety, existential anxiety, eczema, asthma. I was in the hospital a lot. The medical bills were probably through the roof. I was a very shy child. I rarely spoke at all. I spent my days drawing comics and making elaborate storylines with my bucket of dinosaurs. Eventually, my dad had a meeting with my teacher, and soon after, I was sitting in a psychiatric clinic getting tested for autism. I don't know what my teacher said to him, but he was determined to find out what was wrong with me and fix it, like he did many times before. I don't have autism. However, I was diagnosed with selective mutism. From that point onwards, he would take time out of his very busy schedule and bring me to the clinic every Sunday, and would have to pry my trembling body off his leg and hand me to the speech therapist. That's just who my dad is. He identifies the problem and finds a solution, no matter what it is. Everything has to be under control. My dad always went above and beyond whenever it came to his children. However, he also had such a quick temper. No matter how much love he's shown through acts of service and gifts, all it took was one hurtful phrase to counteract them. I was little at the time, so I didn't understand why he was so frustrated and angry all the time. All I could piece together was that I was probably the one at fault. I never told him how I felt, though, because I always had in my mind, loud and clear, don't complain, this is normal. So everything stayed inside, kind of like a pressure cooker, like a really bad fart. As a result, around 7 to 8 years later, I find myself at the psychiatric clinic again, this time with scars and both my parents by my side. This was during COVID. I don't remember the details, but my dad and I fought constantly. I was spiraling further and further, and he was constantly angered by how useless I was. I spent weeks in my room watching the sky turn dark and closing the blinds when it got bright out. I felt so helpless, and I didn't have the knowledge at the time to even know what was wrong with me. I remember blaming him for so many things, for always being so angry and hateful and making me feel horrible and useless and insecure, but I blamed myself even more for being a deadweight and being inadequate. That's really unhealthy talk, by the way. I hope no one feels like that about themselves. If you do, stop it. While all that was going on, I failed to see that he was actively trying to inform himself, listening to audiobooks and staying up till the crack of dawn doing research on mental health. I failed to see that he willingly forced himself to change his way of thinking to accommodate my needs. Whoever it was that said old minds can't be changed was wrong. It takes a lot, but it's possible. If there's a will, there's a way. It took my dad many years and doing the hardest thing he's ever done in his life, admitting that he was wrong. This reminds me of a quote from Arcane, the action-adventure television series streaming on Netflix that everyone should definitely watch. Is there anything so undoing as a daughter? Having children change his priorities for sure. Sometimes change isn't voluntary. Life throws things at you and you kind of just have to take it. Something I try not to think about too often is the fact that my dad may grow old without someone by his side. And the thought of that really pains me. Perhaps my mother's diagnosis changed his priorities even more, because he's no longer the person he used to be. My mom was diagnosed with late-stage lung cancer over a year ago. My dad found out when 2 of his children were 8,000 miles away from home, and his youngest wasn't old enough to understand. My aunt and uncle were on a call with him that night that he found out, and the cries that were ripped from his throat were visceral and raw and painful. His body shook with sobs as he tried to piece together a life plan that no longer seemed certain. I remember talking to him about what his ideal life after retirement looked like. And he said growing old with my wife in the countryside and having my kids visit often, and for Kelly to play the violin for me while I relax on my couch. I do play the violin. In recent years, he's been flying to Taiwan every 2 weeks to pick up medicine for my mom. He never once complained. As he did for his children, he spent hours upon hours researching her illness, ensuring treatment and consultations from the best doctors he could find, and bringing my mom to Japan every holiday to make her happy. His new life plan was to spend as much time with his wife as possible, and for his children to be happy no matter what they'd end up doing. I think the biggest lessons my dad learned from being a father is that not everything has a clear solution, and that happiness should always come first. And the biggest lesson I learned from my dad is to believe in the extraordinary human capacity for change. Daddy, you're probably watching this on YouTube or something. I love you and I miss you so much, and I'm sorry for not calling home. You taught me so much more than I give you credit for, and you'll always be the strongest person I know. Thank you.